Hey kiddos, so let me get us all on the same page so we are all starting at the same place. This right here is my paper pattern for my sloper, for just that basic tank top that we're working on. So let's get everybody up to that point. Don't sweat this stuff. This is a sloper I've been using for about a year. This is a dart that I needed to put in to bring in the waist a little bit, and a dart for my tiny bust that I needed to bring in. We're not going to be dealing with that stuff down there. We're going to be dealing with this stuff right here. So what I've done is I've cut out just the upper part. So see this part? I've got the fold of the fabric. So when I open it up, it's a full front. And I've chopped it off right below the armhole, right there. And then this is the back part. And I cut up an old sheet, actually a pillowcase, and all the junk's on the floor. So don't look at the floor. Don't you cut yours up like this. This just seemed to fit a little bit better in this table. And it'll be easier for me to flip it around and buzz through some measurements that we're going to have to do for this neckline. So as you are looking at this, pretend in your head that when we go on to the next step, this is the full shirt. I'm just giving you the upper part. You should have the full shirt. I'm going to go over and stitch my shoulder seams together. So I'll open my front. Bloop. Oh, look at the pretty front. And then I'll open my back. Bloop. And there's my pretty back. And I will stitch my shoulder seams together, which is, I believe, where most of you are at. In fact, I think you've probably already stitched your side seams. Totally fine. I'm going to leave my side seams open so I can spread this out and show you what the next step is. Okay, so everybody should be at that point. Okay, kids, so I'm going to walk you through how to draft a Mandarin collar, okay? And this will be based off of your neck measurements that we did on your sloper. Okay, so remember I said I was gonna stitch my shoulder seams. I stitched my shoulder seams, and this is my back piece right here. And then I gave myself, pretend that these two come together. See my little 1/2-inch seam allowance. I should flip it around so you can see. I do a 1/2-inch seam allowance. I cut a center front seam. So picture like a button-up shirt or jacket or something of that sort has a center front seam. And I marked my 1/2-inch seam allowance because this will have some sort of placard or something that will finish up this edge. Even if it's bias tape, you still have to do a little bit of a fold over, okay? So shoulder seams are done. I didn't do side seams so I could lay it out nicer. I'm gonna fold the center back seam, bloop, and lay it out as a half piece so it's easier for me to measure my neck edge, because that's the measurement that we need to start with. We need to start with a neck edge measurement, which is right in here. Bloop. Even all of that up. Make it all pretty and even. Doink. That's taking longer than I had hoped. Boop, boop. Okay, so get that nice and flat, and we're gonna measure, this would be half of our neck edge, right? Right. There's a couple different ways. I always measure this kind of stuff with my tape measure. So you're gonna go around using how it bends. Remember that nice little lesson that we have at the beginning of every year, and you pull this out of the pillowcase. Okay, mine is at 11 inches. Boop. 11 inches. Okay, good. So I did that right. And I'm measuring to my little notch right there, my seam allowance. So my neck edge, half of it is 11 inches. So my neck seam is going to be 22 inches. I wanted to point out this really cool ruler. If you're ever out and about or at a, like an office store, it's bendable. Isn't that cool? My sweetheart bought me one of these, and because I was doing a whole bunch of armholes in a pattern. And look, you can just bend it to make it work. Cool. It's really handy with your armholes. Yep. Okay. So I'm at 11 inches. Okay. So first step, I did a little cheat sheet here. You don't have to read that yet. What I'll do is just take a picture of it and attach it in a file for you. But this is what I'm going off of as we do our steps. We are going to draft a Mandarin collar. And what you'll need is a pencil, a sheet of paper. Mine's 11 inches, so I couldn't do an 8.5 by 11 because I have to set in a bit. So I've got one of those longer pieces of paper. If you just get a scratch piece of paper that is about 1.5 inches longer than whatever half your measurement is. So mine is 11 inches. Okay, step one, you're gonna do a vertical line, and this is gonna represent our center back seam. And I want you to come in 1 inch. This is how you get away with not using a T-square. If you have a T-square, woohoo! So I make 2 marks at 1 inch. And then I extend that line. So I know I've got a consistent and even line. There's my center back seam, CB. CB is standard for center back. So if you're looking at patterns or you've purchased patterns and you're wondering what CB means, it means center back. Okay, now I'm gonna create the collar base. And I'm gonna come up 2 inches. Boop. And 2 inches. I hope I don't go off the screen. Okay, 2 inches and 2 inches, and we're going to create a 90-degree line right here. It's going to intersect and create a 90-degree corner. And I want you to go over, so set your ruler when you're drawing this horizontal line. Set your ruler so you can go over 1/2 inch to the left of your center back seam. So I'm going 1/2 inch across the center back, and I go all the way across there. Then I want my Mandarin collar to be a finished 1 inch. So I'm gonna measure up, remember seam allowance. So I'm gonna measure up 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches, boop, right there, and 1.5 inches, because I want that line to be parallel to that baseline. So 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches, and again, when you create this line, you're gonna go over 1/2 inch. So meet up those dots nice and straight, and maybe even eyeball down here and make sure that you're running parallel with that baseline. And come over 1/2 inch. Okay, cool. Now we're going to mark your baseline. And the baseline is where the Mandarin collar attaches to your neck. And that is going to be, does everybody remember? Mine was 11 inches. So I'm gonna measure over 11 inches, boop, and make a little mark. And then for this line up here, this is going to be the top edge of your Mandarin collar, and this measurement is going to be half of your neck seam, so the 11 inches, but then I want you to take 1/2 inch off. We need to close it up just a itty bitty bit so your collar doesn't bloop fall open. You want a Mandarin collar to kind of stand up straight. So that is going to be 11 inches, take away 1/2 inch, so that gives me 10.5 inches. So from my center back seam, I'm going to go 10.5 inches. And then I'm going to match that little notch, the 10.5 notch, to my 11 inch notch. Match those lines and draw a pretty line this way. And draw it long enough that you can see that it's got some length to it, because we're going to use that right now. So there's my baseline. This is the top of my collar. My next step, I'm hoping you can see all that was clear. I've got my center back seam, my baseline that comes to 11 inches, my upper line that comes to 10.5 inches. I want you to take that sheet of paper and I want you to fold it. Here's the origami part. You're gonna fold right on that center back line that you drew. That's the very first line you drew. Remember we talked about center back? Fold that line, okay? I want you to take that fold and you're gonna take this bottom, remember that bottom 90-degree angle? You're gonna fold this, the bottom one is going to meet the top one, and you're gonna run it along that angle that you drew out, okay? And then create a crease. Okay? Look at that. Yoink. So see how I did that? I folded my center back seam back, and I still have those two little 1/2-inch marks. The bottom mark is going to meet the top mark of your Mandarin collar. Bling! Isn't that pretty? And then you're gonna create a crease. The next step, you're gonna take this fold, that crease that we just created, and you're gonna bloop, match it over along that same edge. So you're kind of doing fold on top of fold, and crease that. Yoink. Good, 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 good. All right. So then when I open up, whoop, 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 I have 4 creases, right? I've got my center back crease, and then I have quartered. Everything is in quarters now. Yay! Everybody's doing great, correct? All right, now, this is how we're gonna create that cool little arch that we need for any type of collar. So remember these steps because you'll repeat this when we work on other ones. You're gonna take that first crease, that center line fold, and I'm gonna number these, this will help us. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3. You're gonna take that center back crease and line it up, same exact angle, line it up to the first crease. Now do you see how those marks, God, I hope you guys can see these things. Those marks don't land right on the line, on that. That was our strip that we were making for the collar. You're gonna mark on that pattern, bink. So I've intersected my center back seam, went over to the first crease, and I made 2 marks. Then I'm going to the second crease. I'm following that crease, lining it up so it's all pretty. And I'm making a mark there, and I'm making a mark there. I'm following. And then I do the last one, which is almost spot on, but not quite. This is how we're gonna blend that. Boop, boop. Okay, so now you should have all of these little notches, this dotted line that you are going to connect. Connect the dots, kids, connect the dots. Boop. 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 All the way to that point. I should show you what that point is. That's the very first line we made, remember? And I don't think I pointed out that you have to make a notch right there. That's your last dot. And look, good thing I went back and did it because We're gonna make that cleaner. Okay, and then I come in here and match these dots. Mark, mark. And that's that first intersection. Mark. Cool. And then just kind of eyeball it and make sure that you're getting a nice arch. This is a good place that you could bring in, if you have one of those French tailor rulers that are good, especially if you're tailoring suits and creating waists. You can find the arch that is most similar, and that will help you create that line. If you don't have it, it's okay. It's not a big deal. You can eyeball it. That's what I usually do. All right, now we have to account for, so I'm hoping you guys can see, I'm going to use a Sharpie. You should have something that looks like that. Okay, now the problem is when we start to arc that so it sits into your neck edge nicely, we start to lose distance. We start to lose the length on it. So you need to go back in, and if you remember, this bottom line needs to be 11. Right. So I'm measuring out 11 for me. Yours might be different. Oh, and I'm only about a 1/4 of an inch off on that. And then my upper line is what? 10.5. 10 and oh, and I was a little bit longer than that. Okay, so then I have to extend those two lines a little bit farther. Okay. All right, now this is the last part that you get to decide what this edge looks like. Envision that this is the top of your collar. Mandarin collars usually have a little bit of a slope to them. No, that wasn't a great picture. Oh no, you know who's gonna get me is our artist. Shoot. There, that's kind of, get rid of that. Don't look at that. And then this is in the back. There's your little Mandarin collar. So there's usually a little wah right there. But you could have it just be pokey. You could have a nice little pokey collar there. Or you could come at an angle this way. You get to decide, whatever that looks like. I'm going to just stick with that basic Nehru. All right, then, last step. Get your poopy scissors. Don't use your fabric scissors. You're going to just cut that out. I'm going to do my little arch. Don't use your good scissors cutting paper. Don't do it. Keep that little center back seam. And so now there is your drafted pattern for a Mandarin collar. And you would, that's our center back seam, cut on fold. So when you open it up, it is a whole piece, and you will cut two. Cut two of those, because we'll want the inside and the outside. All right. Okay, so that's how you draft it out. I'll, on the next video, show you how you attach it to your shirt. Okay, but get that done. Let's have you finish that, and go ahead and cut it out of just some scrap fabric so you can practice making it. Okay, bye.